All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at kind of a mixture today. We're going to kind of transition into the leadership aspect. Because if you remember last week, we talked a little bit about the business plan. We took a look at the 4Ps and talked about the execution of your idea and so on. So found a little article that we're going to take a look at here for the week to GoToMeeting that deals with Steve Jobs. As you guys probably know, unless you've been in a hole in the last 15 years, Steve Jobs. Stefan, I do have you muted because there's all kinds of sound that comes through. So just type it in down there. You can't even imagine the stuff that comes from sometimes some of the sounds I pick up. So, anyways, with going back to this GoToMeeting here, Steve Jobs was obviously a very big innovator, brought a lot of good ideas, a lot of great products here that's really changed our lives. So he kind of had a different way of looking at products and people and the way things are being done. And if you guys don't know, from the year 2000 to the year 2010, Steve Jobs was voted by Forbes magazine as CEO of the decade. So let's kind of look at this. And the perspective this comes from is from a gentleman named Guy Kawasaki. Guy Kawasaki was considered the evangelist, that was his official title, back in the late 80s and early 90s for Apple. He was the head marketing guru. So obviously he got to know Steve Jobs very well. And you can see there, this comes from his website, The Art of the Start, How to Drive Your Competition Crazy, Rules for Revolutionaries, and Reality Check are some of the books that he's come out with. Okay, so if you've never heard of him, he was really big in the early 90s, especially for Apple. So let's take a look at some stuff here that, so you guys can hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I'm just making sure here. So let me go back, apologize for that. All right, because I heard somebody say that they couldn't hear me. Okay, so let's go back to this, all right? So the very first thing I want to talk about here when it comes to this is customers cannot tell you what they need. Now that sounds weird because we are, we tend to think of that we are the customers. We do know what we want. But the way that Steve Jobs looked at it, it was a very, very unique perspective, okay? So with that in mind, let me show you the next slide here, and I think this will all come into perspective. All right, so we have a guy here that is on a buggy, and he's got two horses. If we go back to the 1880s, 1890s, this was the main mode of transportation, short distances anyways, to get around the United States and other places around the world. If you ask this guy sitting on this buggy right here what he would need to make his transportation better, he would probably tell you a faster horse, okay? Obviously, he knows nothing about cars, and this is what Steve Jobs always wanted to do. He always wanted to do something that people hadn't thought about, and so that's the reason why he said customers cannot tell you what they need because they don't know what the next big thing is. And therefore, because of technology and so on, Steve Jobs was able to give them that. And if you go back to 1984 and you look at the first Macintosh, before the Mac came out, the main mode of moving around the screen on a computer was using the keys on the keyboard and the up and down and left and right, keys to move from side to side. We didn't have the visualization that we have today, with computers and so on. And we could talk about the iPhone and things like that as well. So Steve Jobs is a big believer in customers cannot tell you what they need because they don't even know that it's out there or that it could be offered and so on. One other thing that Steve Jobs liked to do was jump to the next curve. Now, we're going to talk about this in just a second. This is a thermostat that a lot of you probably have within your home. But before we talk about this, if we look at different things in our lives, what Steve Jobs used to like to do was to take something that existed and add a piece to it, okay, that made it much more accessible or a lot easier. So if we talk about the typical thermostat in your houses, if I ask you guys a question, how do you set your thermostat? Can you set your thermostat and do it on a regular basis and so on? Usually what we do is we hit that up and down buttons on that thermostat to make it go cool or to make it go to more heat, okay? But here is the new type of thermostat. This is a jump to the next curve. This is called a Nest thermostat. I actually have this thermostat in my house. It is a very simplistic thermostat. What it does is you take your thermostat off, you take the wires out of it, you email Nest the configuration of the wires that come out of your thermostat, and they will send you a picture back to show you how to configure your Nest. And this, I can, right now as we speak, I can get on my cell phone and I can tell the heat or the air conditioner in my house, I can bump it up or bump it down. So during the summer, it's so hot down here in Florida, I set my thermostat at 79 when I leave. And about half an hour before I get home, I get on my iPhone and I tell this Nest thermostat to bump my air conditioning down to about 72, 73 degrees. Saves me a lot of time, saves me a lot of, money savings as far as not having to air condition in my house. Stefan, I'm not even going to go there, okay? Okay, because it's just the thermostat. If they want to hack into my thermostat, I'm not going to worry about that too much, but I see what you're saying, okay? But this is a jump to the next curve because a lot of people don't know how to use the thermostats, not to program them anyways. This one can be programmed very easily using your iPhone. Another thing, and Nest was just bought out by Google recently. Another thing that they've come out with is smoke detectors, and they've taken smoke detectors to the next curve. So to tell you what Steve Jobs did as far as going to the next curve, before we get to that, what he did is, if we took a look at printers way back when, printers were dot matrix printer. They had a print head that had the fonts on them, and when you hit the letters, it would punch that onto the paper. Well, these print heads had the same font. You couldn't change the font. It was a typewriter. And so what Steve Jobs did is he jumped that to the next curve, and he came out with a laser writer. Now, if you think this is all technology based, it's not. I can give you another example of 3 things that have jumped to the next curve. The first, and when I say 3 things, I'm talking about 3 separate curves for one product, and that product would be ice. I did say ice. If we go back, a few, 100, 120, 130 years ago, if you wanted ice, you'd had to gone down to the pond or the river and cut out a chunk and bring it back to your house and hope that it stayed cool for a day or two. So you would have ice deliveries. Then they came up with ice factories that actually made ice, and what they would do is they would deliver this ice to your house, and you had a thing that was called an ice box. As a matter of fact, my mom and dad well, my mom is still alive, but she's 87. She still calls a refrigerator an ice box because that's what she grew up with. They would deliver a piece of ice to your house. You would take that piece of ice and put it in a box, and that on top of the refrigerator, and that would keep the rest of the refrigerator cool. Okay, and then the next jump for ice, or in other words, to keep your food cool, was of course a refrigerator. So those are 3 jumps to the next curve, using something just as simple as ice to get to to provide something, a service in this matter, for your house. So jump to the next curve is a very big thing that Steve Jobs believed in, and I've had students that have done this. I've had students that came up with a mobile idea for a hair salon, and what they would do is they go out and visit a lot of senior places down here, trailer parks and things like that, and they would actually take the salon to them in the RV. That can almost be looked upon as a jump to the next curve to offer a service for getting your hair fixed for senior citizens. So, this can be done. Doesn't necessarily have to be technology. It's just you're thinking almost outside the box. Steve Jobs also liked to say that design counts. So much so that he learned this from his dad, and his dad taught him that, and his dad did a lot of things with design and so on, not like with computers, but with furniture and cars. And so Steve Jobs' dad used to put together furniture. Now, if you go into a average furniture store and you look at the back of the piece of furniture, it's usually not finished. It obviously does not look as good as the front of the piece of furniture. And the explanation for that is nobody ever sees the back of the cabinet. Steve Jobs didn't believe in this. So what he said is, when we make our computers, I want the inside of those computers to look just as organized and beautiful as the outside of the computers. In other words, somebody took the top off, everything is looking neat and organized. So you see the ring on that iPod right there from a few years ago? He went through 110 different shades of black before he came up with the black that they wanted to use on that ring, that ring that we used to use on their iPods. So this is the type of thing that Steve Jobs, he always said that design counts. Here is a bad design, okay? Obviously, this is a flip-flop. This is made by Reef. And just think about this. This is a beer opener on the bottom of your shoe. Now think about the genius that thought of this. So you're walking around the beach, you're stepping in all kinds of stuff like poop and everything else, and maybe a jellyfish and birds and everything else. And oh, let me take my shoe off and pop a beer with this. Not the best of ideas, popping a beer after you've been walking all over everything. And here you go, honey, here's a beer for you. So this was trying to come up with an innovative design. Didn't quite work because once people really realized the implications of opening up a beer from the bottom of your shoe, not a good thing, okay? Another thing that Steve Jobs used to say, and he didn't say this too often, I'm going to be honest with you on this, is changing your mind is a sign of intelligence. Now, if you take a look at this patent right here, this came from 1985. I guess we could call this the first Apple phone. It looked like an actual phone. This was not a cell phone necessarily, but this was a design. That's not necessarily what I want to talk about because the original iPhone came out in 2007. I bought the original iPhone a day after it came out, and the apps that were on that phone was the only apps that came with that phone. There was no app store, okay? Steve Jobs wanted to make sure that that iPhone would not be hacked, as like Stefan said here, would not be hacked. And so he felt like that if other apps were being offered, it could possibly be hacked. 6 months later, he changed his mind and created the App Store. I just seen that if iTunes, which includes the App Store, was its own company, it would be like a number 138 on the Fortune 500. So changing his mind as far as the App Store is concerned was a very, very good thing for Apple. And there are over 1 million apps for the iPhone today. About 600,000 apps for the iPad, but over 1 million for the iPhone. Of course, we don't pay for all those. Some of them are free, but then you got in-app purchase and things like this. This was a beautiful business model by Apple because Apple takes 30% of the profits. The app developers get 70%. And if you know anything about, if you keep up with these apps, the guy that came up with Flappy Birds is making over $100,000 a day on Flappy Birds. And he just pulled that app from the App Store because he said it's too addictive, and he feels bad because people are addicted to the game. He's making $100,000 a day and he's walking away from it. Anyways, I don't understand that one, but hey, more power to him, okay? So here's another example of this, okay? This would be a little toy that came out in the early 90s. This was called My Little Monster, okay? Obviously, there's some implications here. If you can read between the lines on this, this kind of, comes across kind of bad, but this was a very popular toy. I'm not endorsing this toy whatsoever. I didn't have this toy or anything else, but this is a very popular toy in the 90s. So one of the guys that started to work for Adidas came up with an idea based upon his love for this toy called a Little Monster, and this was it, okay? So Adidas almost released this shoe. This obviously is a big connotation. It does not take a brainiac to realize that this basically looks like slavery in a shoe, all right? They did not release this shoe, but they almost did. They took it to consumers, and people was like, are you kidding me? Type of thing. So they didn't come out with it, but there could have been a huge backlash for this if they'd have come out with this based upon My Little Monster and coming out with shoes with, obviously ankle bracelets on there tied to your shoes, okay? This is not like having your keys on a chain. So this is another thing that Steve Jobs used to say is, changing your mind is a sign of intelligence. Next thing, we talked about this last week. We talked a little bit about value versus price, and you guys can see this. Price is what you pay, value is what you get, okay? What Warren Buffett, who is one of the richest men in the world, said this right here, and he's right on the money with this. We can go out and we can buy a very expensive blank, whatever the case may be, but is there value in that? Are you buying that based upon, say, social standing instead of the value? I've owned nine Hondas, and I always looked at Honda as a good value for the money. Okay, so you need to think about your product and or service when it comes to value. You want more than anything else to have your customers feel like they got a good value for whatever they're paying you for, whatever that product and or service may be. And that's the key to this. They have to feel like there's good value involved. So let's delve in this just a little bit further here, okay? So price is not all that matters. What is important, at least to some people, is obviously value. You may have seen this on TV. Okay, this is called Wipe New. And what they do here is, you guys probably know, a lot of the molding and stuff that goes around our cars, especially down here in Florida, starts to fade out after the sun. Okay, so you can see the logo that is on this right here. It says wipe the years away. All right, so this is not Armor All. This is a different type of thing that is supposed to work very, very well. This is a value-based product, okay? This says if you want your car to look new, at least the molding anyways, this is the thing that you need to have. And so when I always laugh when I see a scene on TV, because they always say, but wait, there's more. Order today and you get another bottle of Wipe New along with an application pad. That's how they give you the illusion of that it's a good value, is things like this. And Wipe New would be an example of that. But let's talk about Target versus Walmart. Walmart will never say we are the cheapest. In the area of marketing, you never want to come across and say you are cheapest at anything. You always want to use value. Look what Walmart says here. Save money, live better. In other words, if you save money, that way you can go spend money on other stuff. Okay? Walmart comes across as the low price leader. Target does not do that. Target does a different type of marketing strategy to where they, you feel like you're going to pay maybe just a few cents more for Target, but you don't have to put up the hassle of going into Walmart. They always have very clean stores. The aisles are wider. I don't know if you realize that or not. And Target just does not seem to be as busy as Walmart. Walmart can just drive you crazy at times, okay? Checkout lines and so on and so on. So even though Target is a little bit more, and I know that, Target is actually more of a value to me, because I like a lot of people, when you guys start getting in your careers and doing things and all that, time becomes a very big commodity. I'd rather go into Target, pay maybe just a little bit more than fight the lines at Walmart. Seem to be a cleaner experience, and the checkout lines aren't as long. So Target, for me, is a little bit more better value than what Walmart. Not saying I don't shop at Walmart. I do, but if I had a choice, I would rather go to Target than I would Walmart. I know Walmart on average is the better price, but I'd rather do a little bit less hassle, because my time and the hassle of dealing with the lines at Walmart is better for me at Target than dealing with it at Walmart. So value can be looked upon in a lot of different ways. Steve Jobs also used to like to say that real CEOs demo. Now, if you go to YouTube and you look at some of the CEOs that have tried to demo their products when they've made major announcements, there's been major failures on their part. Okay, a few years ago, Samsung had a terrible, terrible demo by their CEO. So Steve Jobs used to like to say, and I think this is good leadership quality right here. If you're going to make a product and you're going to sell a product that millions of people are going to buy, you better be able to come out and demo that product. And this is a picture of him demoing the first iPhone. Okay, so some CEOs do this. If we take a look at Papa John's, this would also be another example of a demo. I don't know if Papa John's makes any pizzas today. I don't know if this guy that we see on the screen, which is Papa John something, I can't remember his name. I don't know if he makes pizzas anymore, but man, he sure makes it seem like he does, doesn't he? And I think he's a good role model for Papa John's. And, we all know that phrase, better pizza, Papa John's, all right? Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. This guy's probably said that line millions of times. But real CEOs demo. You want to be able to show from your leadership standpoint that you can demo their products and or services and bring them to market. So that's another thing that Steve Jobs used to like to say. So that's a little bit of business plan and leadership built into that lecture. Weeks 3 and 4, we will focus in on leadership itself. But we are not done for the day. Let's take a look at in-depth look of the assignments for this week. And guys, let me just say this. I think some students bug out of this. You online students, I'm talking to you. Some of you bug out on this without looking for the assignments. listen to what I have to say about it, I would caution you to stick around and listen, because some of the mistakes I've seen, I don't know how in the world you can make a mistake, because I cover this pretty much in depth in assignments. So stick around, okay? So let's talk about turnitin.com. I sent you guys an email yesterday about Turnitin. And what Turnitin means for the department here and for the college has this as a whole, is unfortunately we had a lot of students out there that were cheating, okay? Now what I mean by cheating is they would go out and find a website and they would do a copy and paste and turn that information in as their own. That is plagiarism. You cannot do that. There is not a university in the world that's going to allow you to do that. But with a billion websites out there, how am I supposed to find out all this? It's not fair to the students that do it good, that follow the directions, and students that cheat. So Turnitin is a website where you guys are going to submit your written assignments up to Turnitin.com. I will grade them on Turnitin.com, and that way we make sure that there is a level playing field and nobody out there plagiarizes or anything else. Okay, so what you will do, if you take a look at that, email that I sent you, you're going to create an account. And then once you create an account, you're going to have a class ID, which I provided in that email. And then you're going to have a password, which is leadership, all lowercase. And so what you're going to do is you're going to submit 4 different submissions to Turnitin, okay? So this week, what you're going to do is you're going to submit your blog post, okay? Next week is your presentation script, and you're also going to, besides your leadership APA paper, which is week 4, but you're also going to have a mastery journal post that you're going to have in week 3 as well. It's just not stated there right there. So definitely make sure that you check your Full Sail EDU email. Now, what do you need to upload to Turnitin? You need to upload a Word document. And let me just say this: upload that Word document, and if you want. You're not going to upload it to FSO. You're just going to check off on FSO that you uploaded it to Turnitin.com. But written assignments for EXL, I always have you uploaded to Turnitin.com. It provides a great opportunity, a great platform for me to be able to show you guys if you made any mistakes and what you need to improve on and so on. You get to see everything there, okay? So let's talk about some week 2 assignments. Obviously with discussion boards. Most of you did very well on the discussion boards. But remember, that first discussion board post is due on Wednesday before midnight. So make sure that you get in, because if you wait till Sunday to do both posts, it's 80 points off because you didn't do the initial post. The initial post is the most important one. And then, of course, by Sunday, you want to make sure that you do your response post, which is worth 20%. So do not forget those discussion boards, okay? Also, with the discussion boards, if you see points taken off because your answers were too light, remember, every question that I ask you has to be answered in at least 5 sentences. And yes, if they are very light, I do count sentences. Okay, so make sure that you answer those things thoroughly, and the response post is at least 5 sentences as well. And remember, it doesn't really count to say, that was good, period. I enjoyed that, period. Great post, period. That doesn't count. Okay, so please don't do that. All right, I hate taking points off for stuff like that. So let's talk about the case assessment. This is a fancy word for test. I don't know why, but Full Sail won't allow me to call this a test. This is an assessment, okay, but really it's a test. All right. Now, notice right there, the very first bullet point covers only the readings from the first 2 weeks. I am not going to ask you anything besides the chapters and the laws that you guys were required to read in class. And also, if you guys look in week 1, I have also posted some green videos. I'm getting ready to upload another batch of green videos for the laws here pretty soon, probably today, tomorrow. I'm trying to get them done right now. To provides an opportunity for you guys to kind of have a quick and easy 5-minute overview of the laws, okay, from the green book, because sometimes those laws can be misunderstood. So I'm going to give you 5 scenarios. You answer 4, okay? And you only choose one Maxwell trait or green law. And I will even say, what Maxwell chapter is this, okay? So I can give you a hint that it comes from Maxwell. So you need to answer, and this is if you look at the rubric, and I'm always begging you guys to look at rubrics and instructions, okay? First of all, you need to tell me what chapter or law it is. Second, why it's that law or chapter. And the third thing is give me a story from the readings. So give me a story from the chapter, give me a story from the law, whatever the case may be that applies to that. Okay? So that is what those case assessments are built upon. You simply tell me which law or chapter it is, tell me why it is, and then give me a story that goes along with it. If you don't do those three things, it's points off. Okay? So it's only the readings from the first 2 weeks. You will also have a second case assessment in week 4. That is only the readings from the last 2 weeks. So this one is only the readings from the first 2 weeks. So if you say this is law number 3 out of the green book for one of the cases, I'm just going to tell you right now that's an automatic, missed it, so on and so on. So make sure that you know those laws, know those chapters, and take a look at it, okay? And obviously that is due Sunday. So let's talk about the initial blog post. I'm in the middle of grading your blogs right now. Let's see, I got the discussion post graded, I got the quiz graded, so I'm starting to grade the blog posts. All right, so I will also be sending an email out to everybody after I've graded all the blogs because I want everybody to look at the comments on the grade that I gave you for the blog. So the blog posts, you're going to be doing one of these a month for the rest of the program. This blog post should be about the area that you've chosen for your blog. So if you're doing artist management, your first blog post might be about some new development in artist management or some new thing that's coming out. Maybe there's been a law change. You could even talk about the troubles that Justin Bieber has, okay, as an example, something to do with artist management. If you did your blog on film production, talk maybe about a new review of a new camera. Maybe there was a new red camera coming out, or why was The Hobbit filmed in 30 frames per second, I believe it was. All this type, or it was actually 48 frames per second. Why did that? In other words, something that, now, Stefan, this is the blog. Your other one is your mastery journal. So this is your blog, okay? This is your professional blog, okay? So with this, you want to pick something. I don't want you doing it on leadership, actually, okay? Unless your blog is about leadership and you want to go into some area of leadership after you graduate. But do something that is relevant, something that is up to date. Like I said last week, you don't want to do a blog post on, hey, by the way, you can buy music online. That's like 12 or 13 years old, okay? That is not going to be a relevant post. So do something, write an article on something that's got something to do with what you're doing it on. Now, I believe I showed you this last week, but let me just show you this again. What I'm going to do is take a look at my blog. So here's my blog post right here. I'll just go ahead and use this right here. This using family and business. This is an Orlando Sentinel piece that an article that came out, and it talks about using family and business. Which, if you've read Law Number 2 from Green, Green talks about friends. I consider family to be a part of that as well. So what I did is I saw this opinion piece in Orlando Sentinel, and I decided to give my opinion about it. This would be a great example of what you can do for your blog post. Now, there's 2 things that you need to remember on this. The blog post needs to be 300 words, at least 300 words. 300 words or more is great, all right? Also, you have to have 2 links. Listen, folks, this is not APA, okay? Your blog post is not APA. I don't want some reference down here at the bottom. What I want you to do is to put 2 links, just like I did here for the 48 Laws of Power. If I click on this, it takes you to Amazon for the book. If you click on this, it takes you to the show Kitchen Nightmares. You have to have 2 links inside your post. I don't want a really long URL. First of all, it looks unprofessional. Second of all, these things can be very, very long, and it just looks ugly right in the middle of a sentence. So what you want to do is you want to create the link. How do you create the link? If you go back to the keynote that you downloaded for how to create your blog last week, at the very end of it, it shows you how to create these links in your blog. Also, Do your blog post in Microsoft Word. You've got to upload your blog post to both Turnitin and your blog, but do your blog post in Turnitin.com. Why? Well, if you lose power, you lose internet. That way you're not going to lose that online. So do it in Microsoft Word to help you with spelling. It'll help you a little bit with grammar, and then upload that to Turnitin. And then what you want to do is you want to copy and paste that into your blog as well. So Turnitin and copy it to your blog. Go to your blog, and then do at least two links within the blog post, okay? And make it relevant links like I've got here. Opinion piece takes you back to Orlando Sentinel, 48 Laws of Power. It's what I talk about, Kitchen Nightmares, Gordon Ramsay. Those would all be relevant links if I clicked on them and took us to that web page, okay? So definitely, that is something you definitely want to do, okay? So again, at least 300 words. This is not APA, okay? So you can use I, me, and so on, okay? But you want to write about something relevant that is about the theme of your blog, okay? So any questions about that before we move on? The blog post. Also gives me a chance to take a drink here from lunch. Anybody else got any questions? All right, so remember your case assessment, remember your discussion boards, remember your blog post, okay? And obviously, this is always going to be at the very end, the additional support, archive of all sessions, okay? Also, again, if you email from the FSO platform, make sure you include your name on that. There's the phone number for the school, all right? And like I said, probably my preferred way of you guys getting to me is email. So, if you guys need to get to me on email, that's the way I prefer, because that way, this is both for your protection and mine. If you say, I emailed Steve on Monday and I didn't respond to you on Thursday, and that was something very important, I'm just going to tell you I won't do that. But this way, I've got backup, you've got backup. It protects both of us instead of having a conversation. And also, I can answer email anywhere, okay? So, FSO support, if you need that, if you have any technical issues, make sure that you call FSO support. I'm kind of limited on what I can do because they kind of control the purse strings with all these computers. So, guys and gals, that is it for today. Do we have any questions before we do call it a day? All right, let me turn off the recording here.